With Daybreak, that conversation is still going on even during the break, but we're coming now to wind up, and we still like to hear your views. Keep them coming on 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya. Trevor Mbija, hashtag is Daybreak at Waiga Maura as well. We'll sample them during the end of this broadcast. But this is the point where we wanted to come in, Dr. Reverend Lydia, and this is one question that is concerning, whether the church is really concerned with the social fabric breakdown. We've seen the way disputes are being handled, because I know you run the gender and women and youth angle of it. What are they saying? What are their concerns? What is the position of the church?
First of all, the church is concerned about the welfare of the society, I would say, because that is the example that was shown by Jesus Christ, that mission has to be integral. We must not just preach about going to heaven, because meanwhile people are here on earth. We must address those social issues, the political issues, the issues affecting those Christians today and the world, which Jesus loved, in the world, as much as we prepare their hearts to go to heaven. And that is why at the AACC, we accompany churches in addressing those issues that are affecting the church, that are affecting the continent, that are affecting everybody in the world. For example, in my department, the Department of Gender, Women and Youth, we are addressing issues of sexual and gender-based violence. We do what? We eradicate, we try to eradicate.
Can I ask a specific question on that line?
Yes,
If
please.
a congregant comes to you and says that they're being mistreated in their house,
yes,
how long before you tell them that it is okay to leave? Bearing in mind, you know the dicey line between divorce and the church, for example, but this is a lady who is just being mistreated in that house. What are the steps that you take before you tell her you can leave?
Is that even an option that you put on the table, that you can leave?
Leave the house, go back to your parents, for example.
she cannot just leave. I have to listen to the story. I have to engage the other person. I have first of all to try and bring them together. But if the situation is worse, then she can step aside. She can leave, because again, I wouldn't like her to die there or to be killed simply because the church says that there is no divorce. We have seen women who have not even been able to step out simply because the pastor said they shouldn't. But meanwhile, what happens sometimes is even death, something very regrettable. So if the situation is very bad, it is better for her to leave, and then we settle these matters when she's outside, just to save her life. Yes.
Okay, you also want to win, and you've seen some of the messages that have come in. Some would feel that they're very one-sided, that nobody's talking about the time when the church stepped in when you lost a loved one and needed help. Nobody's talking about the time when the church stepped in when you needed education. And there are people who have been educated by the church. There are regions in this country that would not have seen education or such structures if the church had not stepped in. So do you then feel that a lot of the SMS is coming in a very sort of one-sided? Do you feel the church is an easy punching bag? MPs say that they are the easiest punching bag in this country. Are you at the same level with members of parliament?
Perfectly. For instance, my colleague in her department, we have a program for widowhood. How many people, how many women have lost their husbands and they are taken care of in this continent? If it's a man, if it's a widower, maybe 2-3 years time he gets married again. But in case of a widow, perhaps you could stay for the rest of your life without this. But we have programs to address this issue in the continent. And we take it to the African Union, where we have an observer status and make an advocacy when the civil society movements meet before the heads of state are meeting. So this is one program that we also address. So in fact, the church indeed is just an easy punching pad, because the church is, I worship at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church over here. And we have a program for street children. And you can see, in fact, last 2 Sundays, most of the street children the program that we have, some of them have graduated. And we have taken some of them also through...
From university?
Yes, from university.
Okay.
So indeed the church is just a simple punching pad, because we do a lot. The church does a lot. That actually, because we are not politicians, we don't actually advertise and talk a lot about it. But the church is doing a lot of social ministry to actually support its spiritual programs in the church.
Christine, is it unfair to expect the church to be the moral compass? A viewer there asked us a counter question, that should it be the moral compass anyway?
Yeah, who said it should be?
Is it unfair to expect them to have a position even on domestic violence, a position on the decaying moral fabric that we keep talking about? We see children going in doing unusually horrendous things. When we were growing up, your mom would tell you, the church does not agree with what you're doing. And that in itself was enough warning, even without any threats of being caned. Just the church does not agree.
Jesus will be angry.
Jesus is seeing you. That was enough warning.
Yeah.
Is it fair to expect the church to have the solutions now to all these issues that we're seeing?
I think it's a fair question that the viewer sent in, the formulation that he put it. Should it be the moral compass of society? That's a fair question to ask. Should it really be? Because like I said, the church does not stand outside of society. The church is embedded in the very dynamics that everyone else is grappling with. And the way that church spaces deal with this is by, like I said, is by emphasizing personal morality, right? If you're good, then you know, things flow. It's a theory of change that if you're morally, personally upright, right, then either you're spared some of the evil that is in society, or you're a good influence where you are, right? But we don't, like I said, we don't really talk about why our society forces us to have these kind of options, where it's a privatization of what is really public problems, and also the emphasis on like personal morality as the solution. Really categorizes victims, people we are trying to help, into the people who are deserving and the ones who are not deserving. So, for example, you talked about the program with widows, for example. When a woman loses a husband to death, then, you know, she needs help. It's easy to help her, right? What about if she gets pregnant before marriage? Then now it becomes another story. You're like, wait, hold up, right? This is
so
now,
should there be a program for that?
I think we should see everyone for their humanity first, before their status, before what has happened, and look at them from where they need to be interacted with first. You know, before we say that this person is deserving, just like the way I've seen situations where a woman gets divorced and she's kicked out of her church charmer, for example, because she's now suddenly toxic to the group, you know. But if her husband died, then it would have been okay, you know. And at the end of the day, you're like, really, what's the difference here? What part of this did she have control over? If she was leaving because her life was in danger, then why is she being ostracized for this? You get me? So our focus on like people's personal morality really like makes people put in boxes, like you are deserving of the church's attention and you are not, right? And that's something that I'm really against it. And I think it dehumanizes people, because people are not just their statuses. People are humans first.
All right. Yeah. And there's an interesting tweet here from Gadara, one who needs no introduction. He says, would have been great to have less Bible quotes and more factual analysis of actual church conduct. For example, remember church opposed the 2010 constitution. It's disastrous opposition.
Discussing amending.
Yes, it's disastrous opposition to vaccination, contraception, and sex education.
That way you won't win it. But anyway, let's hear
that. Yeah, let's start from you, Apostle. The position of the church on these issues that is raising. Also, there's contraception, sex education.
I believe the problem we are facing here is the definition of the church.
Okay. So you want us to start there?
Yeah. Who is the church? How do we know this is the church of Jesus Christ? By faith and by works. So there's that part of faith and there is that part of work that my dear friends are doing. Faith without works is dead. And then we come here now, when that same faith is brought into the traditions of men or in the regulations of men, then some take it as a business. Others take it as a promotion staircase. Others take it as a promotion to heaven. So this is where the problem is. Because when one religion, I will call them so, one religion does this, then we generalize there is a problem with the church. But the church is the believers, the followers of Jesus Christ. So anybody who is not following the footsteps, not perfectly, but at least believing that I'm going somewhere in the right direction, that person, you can say this is a believer. Even when we have a minister of the gospel, because like now we have seen it. I am the head of the church. My husband is the treasurer. My children, one of them is the keyboardist. Another one there is the usher. Then the whole thing, should we call that church Jesus Christ Church or a personal business? This is where we are. That's the problem. And then when we have the system that when the thieves are coming to the church, they are chased out. Those people who are not well dressed, they are chased out. Those people who are lacking, they are chased out. Is that the Jesus Christ Church? Does it demonstrate the vision of Jesus Christ? And this is why I would love the viewers also, because they also read the Bible. Because I believe when there is a market in business, we have to have the producer and the product, the consumer. So the consumer and the producer, and maybe the strategist, somebody somewhere is wrong. Because the producer makes the consumer makes the producer produce more.
Depending on how they demand for it. Whatever they demand for, the producer will want to.
So now the preachers have known there is a lot of demand of riches. So now the producer will concentrate on making more sodas than milk. And the soda will not help as much as the milk.
Okay.
So, and this is where we are. And I think we need God. We need to return to God so that God may open our eyes and be able to see the true structure of the Church of Jesus Christ. So that when you are going to the church, you are sure this is God I'm following, instead of going to follow the devil in the name of the church.
I have a quick question for you based on what she said.
Yes, please.
She feels that the church needs to be fair in how it handles the needs affecting its people.
Yes.
In your church, what sort of care do you provide, for example, to divorcees?
Yes.
What sort of care do you provide to young girls who, get children out of wedlock?
Yes.
Even people who have attempted suicide, for example.
Yes.
Do you have structures?
Yes, we have a department we call Good Samaritan Department. And I believe we started when God spoke to me. I saw some elderly people. They were walking and they wanted to cross over a bridge. And then they were stuck there. I found them and I asked them, why are you not crossing? And they said, the bridge is bad and it's under repair. But even when it's well done, we shall not be able to cross. And then I asked them why. They said, we are hungry. We need bread. And that's what initiated me to start the Good Samaritan Department. So we have the children home. Like now I'm from Malidi. We visited the children home. I am from Madare. The argument we are talking about, the many churches. I was also asking them, why should we have, even if it was business, how can you put a kiosk selling milk here and the next one is also selling milk?
Yes.
And the Madare, the Kosovo area, there is no many churches. They are just there at the road. So I was asking them, even if it was a police station,
and some of you go in there.
How can you just guide here at the gate where it's not more dangerous? And then you leave the most dangerous people, dangerous area. So I think we are going there, but we need God. Let us agree. The church needs God so that we may be separated from the flesh and maybe we may be separated from the loopholes of the devil.
All right. Reverend, I'd like to bring you in on this because this falls under your docket, gender, women and youth. And this is the question that is being raised by Gadara here on disastrous opposition to vaccination, contraception and sex education. Why does the church find it so hard to talk about the issues around contraception and sex education? And this is something that actually happens. Are we simply just burying our heads in the sand?
Well, I think we cannot really generalize about the church's position. They need to specify which church is against. What
is your position as the All Africa Conference of Churches?
Now, we are a member church, so we cannot speak for every church. But we realize that issues of contraceptives and family planning and all that, some people read the Bible out of context. And especially the Genesis, go and multiply. They actually argue that they have to fill the world, so they cannot use contraceptives. That is wrong theology, because we will be bad stewards. It is not just about multiplying, but also subduing, taking responsibility. Right now at the AACC, we are addressing issues of population, sustainable population and development. If the population growth is higher than Africa can be able to sustain, we have problems in the church. We have problems that the governments cannot be able to take care of the citizens. And so who is to blame? We have to use wisdom, even in reading the Bible, and read it critically. I think what we are calling upon, or what we are arguing about, is age-appropriate sex education. That children be taught about the sex education as they grow and what they can understand, not just bringing everything together. So it is not fair to generalize on the church's stand on contraceptives, because different churches, some of them are ahead that they have no problem. In fact, some churches are running family planning clinics. So we are doing a lot on SRHR.
Dr. Bright, I'll give you each a minute to just wrap up, because we're running out of time here, and you'll take that moment to choose whether it's a word of encouragement, whether it's a sense of direction, whether it's a solution. You decide. I'll start with you.
I think the church is the way forward for this continent. And as said by my sister, we must put God first, and the church is the way, and we must have that kind of holistic interpretation of the Bible, and then Africa will progress.
Christine.
I think we need to articulate a theology of justice, because for so long personal discipline or personal morality was equated with justice. It's not the same thing. Or even acquiring political power and influence, and that way we think that that is what will bring justice to society. I don't remember Jesus anywhere in the Bible going to Rome to influence Caesar so that he could do the right thing. You know, so even the idea of like being close to power so that you can influence it, I think that just limits our political imagination so much.
But Queen Esther was able to influence change from her position. She would not have been able to do that if she wasn't up there.
That's okay, that's okay. And that's why, Trevor, when you talked about like having one voice, I really think that there's room for diverse perspectives. But at the end of the day, what is the point here? The point is not just to be close to power for the sake of it. The point is to influence, is to articulate a theology of justice. What does social justice actually mean? Is it something that is, like I said earlier, where we are just coming in to pick up the pieces after evil has occurred, or is it something that goes upstream to prevent evil from actually happening, to fix, you know, the social structures that put so many people in a powerless position, that one that affirms the humanity of all people in this society, and that really takes into account our historical and our political context.
All right, Apostle, 1 minute.
Yes. I believe if we can use the gift that God has given us, all of us, wherever you are, use that gift properly, we can change the world.
We can change the world.
We can change the world.
We leave it at that. I think short and simple. Okay, so much feedback. I don't know how many we'll take. Let's put them up as we wrap up.
Let's try run as many of them as we can. Starting off on Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija at Wegamura. Let's start with SMSs. 22422 is the SMS line. Samson Ekuru says church have completely lost its moral values. It has drastically changed into business ventures in the name of churches. Schools, hospitals, and even real estates are currently owned by churches, but the solution is election and selection of the chosen one by God to lead.
All right, Matthew Zokomoli from Mombasa. We cannot do a blanket condemnation and generalize the word church just because of a few individuals. The media launches scathing attacks on the church anytime an individual makes a blunder. Trevor, the media. Judas Iscariot did not stop the church from moving forward.
Sorry, I mean Judas.
We are the media. We've been called out there.
Says we have always been reminded that government has been taken over by cartels. The current happenings in most of our churches leaves no doubt that cartels have taken over, or the church leadership has transformed itself to cartels. No wonder many young people don't look at the church for solutions to their challenges. The church must first remove the speck in its own eye first.
Okay. Abel, you don't give us where you're writing from, but say the church has been liberalized, so those complaining are conservatives.
All right.
Okay, different viewpoints there.
Jerry Kibunja says, when God created the world, he did it in an orderly manner, day by day. Let people not bring disorder to God's house. It's disheartening to see church leaders fighting over supremacy and money. We all need to go back to the center of the church, and that is Christ. He is the leader.
Okay, you don't give us your name, but you say church is God's own design. The problems arise from leaders who get to various positions, believing they're better than others. Just ask the panelists one simple question. Is any of them ready to step down from their positions in favor of another person? I won't ask them that. We don't have time. I tell you the truth. Very few of them will do that.
Okay.
Wow.
Let's see another one. Professor Y.K. Thomas from Baringo says, as a Christian, I believe God does not bless disobedience. He may protect us while we are disobedient, but his blessings are reserved for those who obey him. Then there's another one there from Gitonga in Juja, says people should stop throwing blame around. The church is not a building but the congregants. So we should first look inwards as individuals. The church can't force you to uphold morals. It's a choice. It's all free will, and that's why evil never lacks.
Okay, you don't give us your name, but you say the church has lost direction. For instance, I witnessed a situation where a man who looked mentally disturbed entered a church during the service and sat down quietly. He was thrown out just because he was smelling. Was that right?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what else is happening on
Tweets.
Twitter here. We're trying
Let's
to sneak in as many of them as we can. Mwai Brian says the church has in one way or another failed the society. The decaying of morals is because the church isn't playing its role properly, and that people have stopped looking up to the church because of the things that it engages in that defy the right order.
Okay. Yotesh says the church and state should be separate. Church has no business in governance issues. Nations that have embraced this are doing way better than countries who don't separate church and state.
Wow. Sagyoko says people have slowly invoked the end justifies the means. They have normalized corruption. Sadly, they're extremely active in church too. Church should be vigilant and call out all bad guys, including those inside. Church is clean, people are not.
Okay. Let's take the last ones now. Dramelo Blast. Most churches are businesses. I see pastors breaking away to start their own kiosks. Remember, unemployment is real. Starting a church is very easy. Their greed is still raw. They can't speak against bad governance for fear of offerings going down. Wow.
Agumba Steve, where the church leadership is undergoing a state in which at the helm are those who've just studied theology and not called by God for the purpose, hence are money-minded than being spiritual-minded. Wow.
My goodness. Okay, WM Joya, well done. The issues you raise about the enterprise and professional advancement culture are the fundamental problem with today's church. The church is borrowing too much from private sector instead of setting up for itself its own institutional rules.
Wow, last one now. The Ngozi says the church is not a building but rather a person. Where purpose is not defined, abuse is inevitable.
Okay, that's the end of this discussion. But Trevor, there is some breaking news coming out of Kangemi. I don't know if we have the pictures.
Yeah.
We have been informed that chaos. Okay, so these are live images, and I believe that's the Westlands MP there. Yes. So what we are told is that chaos rocked the start of a training of enumerators in Kangemi. Shots were actually fired, and police had to lob tear gas to disperse the groups. Yesterday, we had been informed that youth in Westlands were unhappy that they had not been given the jobs. Remember, locals are the ones supposed to be carrying out this process, and so they were planning to storm a training at Kihomboine Primary in Kangemi. But I believe...
And this is a conversation that happened even in Kiambaa yesterday, right? The Kiambaa constituency, those are concerned about the youth who are saying that they don't know the people who are there and the people who've been taken as enumerators. There are about 135,000 of them in this exercise alone that is meant to kick off on the 24th, I believe, at 6 p.m. So this, our reporter Stephen Leto is following this very closely, and we'll be getting in touch with him in just a bit to find out what's happening there. But what we know is that there are chaos that have rocked that area, And this is really because of the standoff of enumerators who have been selected in that region. They say they don't know them and they wanted the jobs for themselves.
And some of the residents were saying they will not open doors for strangers come the 24th of August. That's when the census will begin from about 6 p.m. So the issue of who is a local is a very controversial matter, maybe even as controversial as what we've been discussing today on this program. And so when we get Leto, if we can't get him now, possibly we will be able to speak to him after the break. But that's what we have so far, and we'll give you more updates on the other side of the break. I believe it's a good time to release our guests as we take that break.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been an amazing conversation.
Yes.
You can even tell from the feedback that we've had, but the common factor from the people is that the church needs to stand more.
A lot more needs to be done. And I think our speakers have pretty much agreed with that. Yes. We've had Apostle Mary Magdalene, founder, Will of God Church. Thank you. Christine Mongai, writer and curator of The Elephant. Thank you for bringing your perspectives. Dr. Bright Gabriel Mawudo, Deputy General Secretary, All Africa Conference of Churches. Thank you for joining us today. And Reverend Dr. Lydia Mwaneki, Director, Gender, Women and Youth, also with All Africa Conference of Churches. Asante sana. We'll take a quick break. The program continues shortly.